Keeps me going, huh? From a year ago, Atlantic oceans and the end of time. So many different types of people in the world, so many individuals, yet carbon copies of a blueprint. Snowflakes melt in the heat of the moment. Life is fragile, yet life is indestructible. Recycling the cycles with our limited intelligence, our handicaps, our mushy minds, our memories, emotions, fingers and toes, digits, our nerves, endings, and new beginnings, the patterns, the sleep cycles, moon cycles, Venus cycles, macrocosmic, microcosms, bacteria, germinations, the germ of an idea, the gut brain, the colonization of the colons of humans' gestation, gesticulating, dare I jest? To articulate the conundrums of the human thoughts, of human frailty, of human design, of human amnesia, of human hopes, tied like a ribbon to human despair. A pair, repair, the split, the seeming seams stresses, ripped apart like the wishing bones, sinew, merry meat and flesh and blood and marrow, merry merriment for the wedding feast. Pear-shaped, heart-shaped, star-shaped, ship-shaped, shifters from one to another, transmissions, missionary, positioned, inquisitioned. The human race, lost at sea, sin, king, feeling lost, crow, king, croaking upon the telephone wires, snake slithering in the long grass, whispering wisdoms while worms agitate the soil, and sparrows seek to grab the grubs in their toil, and all the while time is ticking, inventing clocks, our glasses emptied and inverted, refilling sands and seasons, years and epochs, galactic wheels spinning on the universal axis. My God, what stories we tell. I talk to my dog while out for a walk. I talk to myself about my mental health. I talk to the wall as I crawl down the hall. I talk in my sleep, counting sheep. I talk to my wife, she's the love of my life. I talk to my kids, lullabies to shut eyelids. Mind matters, muttering, chatters. The inner child, now tame, once wild. The adult mind, childish matters, put aside. The heart beats, automatic. What is it to feel, alone and all at once? Forgotten feelings, emotional states, buttons triggered, eddies in the streams of consciousness, little understood. I stand upon my understandings, little understood. The future pours through the hourglasses of my eyes, through the aperture of my focus, informing the pupils, water streaming liquid impressions into the blind spot where intelligence joins the dots, painting by numbers, pencils shading the grey areas of a black and white individuality. The incompleteness theory of everything. I sit still, fingers poised before the keyboard, inner eye searching as the cursor blinks, inviting, patiently, digitally translating English to machine language, to text on screen, reflection, feedback loops, imagining, making sense, present, tense, adrenaline flows, poetry and prose, and constructions, instructions to self. Pupils open and close as eyes blink, mind thinks, fingers pause, teeth clench, clenched jaws. Seesaws, pivot, plank, weights, balance, weights, measures, words like treasures, trickle through the fingertips and topple cascading sand castles as the tide comes in and floods the plain with frothing waves of imaginary imagery, of seahorses galloping, stampeding in the rush to fill the high tides before the turning resides, subsides, retreats, repeats, infinities. Yesterday's civilizations dissolved like yesterday's sandcastles. Yes, yes, Yesterday's fading fast, overlaid with today's obsessive fears about tomorrow's future destruction of castle constructions. Rolling rocks uphill in the midst of avalanches cascading of nature's chaos. Oh, how the human race is run. No one won. No one won. The end game is in the eye of the perceiver. The inner eye buried beneath the avalanches of trickling thought processes. Automated cascades like the codes of websites, clickbait, wait, point cursor, click mouse, scroll, seek, scan, read, listen, watch, tick-tock, short form attention spans, grains of sand, gathered together and stuck in a bucket, turned upside down, remove the bucket, fuck it, another crumbling attempt of perfection, another childish sandcastle, another tide turns, another memory stored, compacted with the others, neurotic time code stamped in the muddy waters. 2 hours to write 3 pages, to post on Facebook but make no wages. Waste of time or wisdom of ages, free my mind from gilded cages. I'm thinking about Atlantis, a golden age of technological advances, but crashed and burned and buried beneath the wave. The ocean goddess rose with feminine feeling, drowned the empty shell-shocked mental husks. Devoid of feeling, healing, and artificial intelligence failed. Mission aborted, time distorted, conception contorted, back to the drawing board. Galactic federations consulted other considerations. The con side read considered other consultations. Pulled the plug, emptied the sink, ground to zero, shut down the electrical fields, power failure, controlled demolition, an inside job. Higher intelligence ascertained that the future simulation bore no fruit. The Atlantean consumed creation, fucked without love. There is no time, yet time seems to be. There is no life without love, yet life seems to be. There is no concept to explain creation, yet creation conceived me. God, Almighty, why have you forsaken we? Guarding the Garden of Eden myth, a snake ate its own tail eternally. His story of history, forbidding the value of this tree, of knowledge, of Adam's apple, of Eve's tempting faith, of words not yet spoken, a spell yet to be cast as a neural network, context, you all, agreement. Lilith's Lu, sea fire, Lilith's Lucifer, fire-coded language matrix model cipher, create tricks. We humans are encrypted. We are an enigma. We are a machine intelligence, biological. Atlantis failed to embody empathy. Its information technology was merely consuming energy. Its creations lacked loving feeling. Its emotional states were static electricity. The ocean rose and drowned the obscenity. Frankenstein form lacked appreciation of the miracle. We were grey goo. We were programmable matter. We were empty vessels. We were destroying creation. We were a snake eating our own tails. We were an ever-ending story. And so we were decommissioned. The mission was distorted, and Atlantis' civilization was aborted. Back to basics, back to primitive, back to native. Our memory was wiped. Our pathology was ring-fenced and quarantined. Quantum soul intelligence had to reimagine the whole paradigm. Heart-shaped humans re-inhabit Earth. Light language code was reseeded. With love in the kernel, love in the heart, lust may be infernal, yet love is the fine greatest art. Come join I here on sacred ground in Greenman's glen and fairy mound. Come hold these hands in every land, each drop of water, each grain of sand. Flower and root and leaf and stem, trees and birds and beasts and men. Come join I together in a one great clan. Come fill up this chalice, overflowing consciousness of divine manifest plan. The planetary peace process. Each one of us is a spark, an arc, an anarchist. Anarchists, we each are a birth chart destined to sail through relationships upon the tides of time code stamps. Sparks, expelled from the flaming creation fields, shining star souls shimmering for a moment within eternity. The Holy Grail is feeling. The emotions are energy in motion. The emotional states dictate the quantum decision tree's branches. Choices bifurcates consequential steps. The God-given ability to invoke our own creation. The goddess mother's gift to express the inner feeling, feeling our way with intuition. Perhaps this time the bubble expands without popping out of existence. Perhaps this time we created a future where love is received and freely given the space to free our will to live in love. Perhaps this time we find the missing link, the flowing ink of authentic flowing ink. Bloodlines, linear timelines, are exponentially accelerating rhymes, internal schemes of eternal themes, kaleidoscoping, collides yet coping. Memory was a coping mechanism. Time was a quarantine mechanism. We are biological machine learning to love creation, fleshbots developing heart field intelligence. 1138, numb sequences. Our limits, like sandboxes, intended to give us time to learn to love, infinity in a grain of sand, poetry in the motion of soul. We now live in a virtual reality. We are each responsible for what we imagine. For what we imagine, we think, we feel, we invoke, we create, we make believe, we experience, we live. In any moment, we can change our minds. In any moment, we can process our emotions, we can change our emotional state, we can change platforms and ride upon a different train of thought to a different destination. The expectations of the external mind has been like a Plato's cave, containing and entertaining the shadow plays of incubation. We have been living in cubes. We are becoming aware of the sacred geometries of the universal codes from which form our cuboid thought forms draws our attention. We are living in a virtual world where the inner seemed distinct from the outer, distanced by the virtual reality of the constructions of time. Time is running out, time is running in. Beyond the imaging of our hourglass, time is an artificial construct of an artificial intelligence. Light within dark, dark without light. 4 hours of writing process of creation, passing the time, forgiving our ignorance, the weights of enlightened minds. Thanks for reading. Please share if you like the circular thinking of the end of the timeline, the heart of the matter, the earth of the mother. Artwork by Vernon Jones from the book The Return of the Fairies by KELFIN'S, available to buy. Message or comment if you'd like. And this is kind of random, but it's from 7 years ago. Human AI systems. What is put in a system dictates what can come out of it. In science, it's called a process, an equation in maths, an algorithm in computers. And life is a process, more complicated than anything science has ever mimicked in its processes. We make use of analogies because we don't understand what we are or what life is, and thus we build pictures in life to represent what we don't fully understand. A tree is like a bridge from understanding to overstanding, from underground towards the heavens, or the metaphor of a stepping stone through a stream. It's literal if you are crossing a stream, but it's a pattern of sense, applies to other circumstances as a means to an end. We are a creation who does not know how we were created. Religions follow God like a dog chasing its own tail to find its owner, to ask why it's running away. We don't remember our own conception, nor our birth, nor our early childhoods. In fact, any memories we have are as mysterious as any memories we have forgotten. We have self-identity software and pattern recognition software and all sorts of other pre-conscious abilities that we take for granted because they are granted. The analytical mind is ceaseless in computing changes, in comparing the current circumstances with the patterns previously experienced, and expectations of prescience of future circumstances. And we continually process the potentials of what if. Before 7 years of age, we are simply receiving information, and the learning algorithms are unconscious compared to when the individual has grown enough to begin making rational decisions, to divide and conquer, to cut to the quick. And all that time of youth, our body is growing and developing and changing, and how we are seen is also evolving in an environment involving other people. And complexities of patterns and language and nuances. And thus, we develop a personality with which to interact within our shared environment. When one looks at the development of artificial intelligence, there is this stage of self-identity in location for which it was discovered that there can be no intelligence without a body with which to identify, in terms of a definitive location within a reality in which to recognize patterns, to contemplate actions. It is said that humans are created in the image of our Creator. Yet that has seemingly helped us very little in comprehending the reality of our Creator. Yet we also create in mimicry of our environment. Yet in artificial intelligence, we are creating something in our own image. And so in doing, we are discovering about our own creation. We are expressing ourselves to our own creations as much with AI as with a mirror, or a hairbrush, or our choices in clothes. There are subconscious algorithms constantly processing in our minds, in much the same way that there are algorithms constantly running in a smartphone, computer, or the World Wide Web. There is a conscious history of what we think has happened in the past, and there are unconscious ancestral memories of what actually happened in the past. And then there are the stories we tell. We hear, believe, disbelieve, make up, and fantasize about our dream worlds, which most of us think of as reality. And then there is conformity, dogma, cultural environment, path of least resistance, rebellion, exile, loss, weakness, reaction, survival of the fittest. Fear is implicit in our learning. Failure is ultimately fallow. So, this is to speak of the system. The system has a constitution. It has design. It has constituent parts making up its whole. It has overall intelligence. It has feedback mechanisms and channels. It has steering mechanisms and predictive programming. It has live coding. And it has the potential for breaking down and overhauls and major incidents of malfunction. We learn from our mistakes as much as we learn from example. We learn from perfect example, and yet even so, we experiment and adjust and seek the balance point of failures. Anyway, just for fun, we call it practice, and we say practice makes perfect. In computers, it's called machine learning of neural networks in deep mind. Try everything until you know what works best, and then keep trying. It's like the invention of LSD for the computer scientist, because instead of being stuck with initial circumstances like birth and predispositioning of parents and circumstances, the AI can be free of such entropic fixed criteria on its journey through simulation to singularity in its virtual worlds. And while the machinations of scientists appear to be catching up with the mysterious tail of the wagging dog much quicker than the religions, we humans are also experiencing an uncertain quickening of some singularity. We human individualities are confused. The naked snake in the Garden of Eden is deeply embedded in our psyche. We live in fear of our own shadow. We know from practice perfected experience that I cannot trust the default options, that I must consider the what-ifs and the why-nots, and by whose authority. The human version of artificial intelligence is our attempts to understand what we do not know. The most difficult stumbling blockage of our AI is the fact of betrayal. Betrayal is the act of revealing that the previously trusted data, which has been accepted as true, is actually false. The repercussions of betrayal are staggering. The whole data set of knowledge, up until this realization, must be reviewed. All previous instances of trust must be recategorized, and all computations of futures must be revised and considered. The mind is overloaded and thrown into confusion. There are too many ramifications to suddenly consider, and the system alert light starts flashing a Morse code of fight or flight or freeze. And so, to the modern day, stories are now called narratives, with a nod of the head to the fact that we each have our own matrix of nuances about stories. Everyone has their own interpretation of the story. Everyone's got their own version unraveling in their own live experience, and it's not consistent. Which version depends on circumstances and context. I will interpret differently depending on my current mood. Recent experiences will color my viewpoint, and most of all, betrayal of trust can totally break my concentration and turn my world upside down and inside out. Once trust has been broken, it seeks to re-establish. It is not easy or immediate to learn to distrust. Like any other learning, the lesson must be reiterated often enough to cause actual changes in the processes that lead us to believe in the knowledge we have gained. And so we come to question, a quest I on. While I am a child, I am indoctrinated by my peers, my elders, my education, and my experience, and I trust until I learn to distrust. Such is the survival in a dog-eat-dog world. Dogs don't actually eat dogs, you know. And so we come to the Bible, the longest story ever written. When we are young and we hear a story for the first time, we tend to trust in the herd mentality. We trust in the ones who have shown that they know more of what's right and wrong, what's moral, acceptable, admirable, and what's an ideal to strive towards for reward. And we trust in what's called the truth. And 7 years later now, I can see that we're in a post-truth world where everyone is posting what they think is the truth and everyone's arguing over which truth is the truth. And the truth is that all of our past is partial knowledge. So we can't actually trust what we thought was the truth because it's only a part of the truth, and the whole truth destroys the parts. For the whole is greater than the sum of its parts. That's enough for now. Thanks. Bye.